Watching these images, we could forget that this is Berlin, the heart of Nazi Germany. This young American champion named Jesse Owens will win the 100 meters, 200 meters, the 4x100 meters relay, and the men's long jump. These 4 gold medals, won single-handedly, helped us believe that the 1936 Olympic Games marked a truce in the Third Reich's march towards a world war. As if, in spite of everything, Jesse Owens' magnificent and unequaled feat consecrated the triumph of sports and the Olympic ideal.
8 Meter 6!
Hitler had inherited the Games, which were attributed to the city of Berlin in 1931, before his rise to power. The new Chancellor of the Reich was reticent at first. Why spend millions when the country is already worn out? But Theodor Lewald, director of the German Olympic Organizing Committee, had done a good job of presenting the advantages to him. In March of 1933, Hitler quickly understood that the Berlin Games would be a decisive tool to win prestige for Nazi Germany. On March 28, 1933, the new Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, was 35 years old. He meets with the German Committee President, Theodor Lewald, to speak about preparations for the Olympic Games. He writes about the meeting in his diary. Then he speaks before a crowd of party supporters and launches a campaign to boycott Jewish businesses 3 days later. Fabulous ambiance, he writes. We'll win this war too. Hitler has the keenest instincts I've ever seen.
Und London, einem kühnen und grandiosen Schwung, haben wir die Feinde des Landes zu Paaren getrieben. Heil! Heil! Heil!
Immediately, Hitler's supporters also begin a war against their political opponents, the Reds, communists, socialists, unionists, and simple protesters, who they imprison in re-education and reform camps, such as Oranienburg, a former brewery to the north of Berlin. As the Nazis set themselves up in power, colossal construction work begins. $36 million Reichsmarks would ultimately be required to build the stadium, when $2.6 million were originally earmarked for the project. When we've invited the entire world, says Hitler, we must build something beautiful and grand. When there are 4 million unemployed, we must give them work. The construction site's foreman is extremely happy. To provide work and bread to the maximum number of unemployed, because there were thousands in Berlin, we tried to do all the work with as little machinery as possible. Manual labor was used in an almost anti-economical fashion. In reality, mobilizing the unemployed presupposes work that is underpaid, and for young people, forced labor. The Great Stadium is an opportunity to reignite life as in ancient Rome, to create ties with the Colosseum, with Epidaurus, with ancient Greece, with antiquity. Never has humanity, says Hitler, been as spiritually and physically close to antiquity as it is today. As they witnessed the strategy of the country unfold, diplomats warned their chancelleries. All German sport today is directly controlled by the government and is professedly an instrument of the party for the shaping of youth into National Socialist ideology. The American General Consul in Vienna, George Messersmith, warns his government in early 1934. To the party, the holding of the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin has become a symbol of its conquest of the world. Should the Games not be held in Berlin, it would be one of the most serious blows which National Socialist prestige could suffer within an awakening Germany, and one of the most effective ways which the world outside has of showing to the youth of Germany its opinion of National Socialist doctrine. In the United States, the Jewish American Congress, organizations, black sports clubs, unions, newspapers push to boycott Berlin. The protest movement expands to Canada, Great Britain, Holland, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, Czechoslovakia, France, and in Spain, where an anti-Olympics project was launched, the People's Olympics, which were to take place in Barcelona. But no world power is willing to risk a diplomatic rift with Germany. The countries leave it to the IOC. Opponents of the Berlin Games are unable to stop the Olympic machine. The discrimination against Jews that takes hold of Germany obviously strikes its athletes too. Jews aren't allowed to train in German clubs. If by chance they are admitted, they never manage to take part in a qualifying match, regardless of their performance. The only exception is Helen Meyer, a German fencer emigrated to the United States, yet considered half Jewish according to the Nuremberg laws. She is accepted on the Reich team and serves as proof to the contrary. With this detail in hand, the American Olympic Committee secretary, in an interview with the New York Times, claims that Germans are not discriminating against Jews in their Olympic tryouts. The Jews are eliminated because they are not good enough as athletes. The state handles the athletes in lieu of sports clubs. The state also handles recruitment, selection, and training. Athletes who are chosen receive an Olympic passport, which gives them transportation, food, lodging, and medical expenses free of charge. They're also given compensation for their salaries, which doesn't really make them the amateurs Olympic rules would have them be. The Berlin Games are a battleground, a battle that National Socialist Germany must win.
Freiwillig folge ich dem Ruf des Reichssportführers, einzutreten in die Reihe der deutschen Jugend, die gewillt und entschlossen ist, sich ernsthaft vorzubereiten und einzusetzen für die deutsche Sache, wie auch die meine ist. Das gelobe ich.
Pax Olympica. The travel agencies and tourist offices of the world's 39 countries distributed 3 million brochures translated into 14 languages, vaunting the tradition of secular German hospitality. The official discourse was very reassuring. Germany will treat all foreigners like guests, without distinction for race or color. Each country will be free to create their national team as they see fit, meaning even if certain athletes are Jewish or black. The founder of the Renaissance of the Olympic Games, the old Baron Pierre de Coubertin, even comes out of retirement for the occasion.
J'ai l'impression que toute l'Allemagne, depuis son chef jusqu'au plus humble de ses écoliers, souhaite ardemment que la célébration de 1936 soit l'une des plus belles que le monde ait vues. Dès aujourd'hui, je veux remercier le gouvernement et le peuple allemand pour l'effort dépensé en l'honneur de la 11e Olympiade.
June 7th, 1935. Heinrich Mann, a writer like his brother, famous author Thomas Mann, makes a solemn appeal in Paris against the Berlin Games.
Nazism sees in man only a material to be used for its cruel ends. How can a regime based on forced labor and mass slavery, a regime that prepares for war and that only exists through its lying propaganda, how can such a regime respect peaceable sports and athletes who defend the ideals of freedom? Believe me, continues Heinrich Mann, international athletes who travel to Berlin will be nothing more than gladiators there, the prisoners and buffoons of a dictator who already takes himself for master of the world.
In Berlin wurde die aus 150 Kämpfern bestehende Olympiamannschaft der Japaner herzlich empfangen.
Es ist für mich sehr schwer, zu den vielen Gästen, die aus dem Ausland zu uns gekommen sind, zu sprechen, weil ich weiß, dass missgünstige Auslandsplätze in allem, was gerade ich zu sagen habe, eine Propagandamöglichkeit.
Monsieur le docteur Goebbels, ministre de la propagande du Reich, déclare qu'il lui est difficile de prendre la parole parce que quand il parle, des interprètes malveillants déclarent toujours que c'est dans une intention de propagande. Il dit, au-delà du cadre sportif, des Jeux olympiques, cette fête qui nous réunit puisse accomplir une mission politique et puisse contribuer à jeter un pont entre les nations dans une entente mutuelle et dans la paix internationale.
Anti-Jewish measures are suspended for the period of the Games, temporarily. The party's militia receives formal instructions on July 22, 1935. It's our duty to convince foreigners that calm and safety reign in Germany and that the German people long for peace with all their hearts. It is a unique opportunity to inform the world of this fact with the coming Olympic Games. Representatives from almost every country in the world will come to Germany as athletes or spectators, and when they return to their countries, will speak of what they've seen in Germany. During the fortnight of the Olympic Games, we want to prove to the entire world that when it is said that Jews are persecuted in Germany, it is a lie. To this end, war songs that were sung before we came to power should not be heard, as this could be misleading. Foreign journalists, invited by the hundreds to watch the Games, might see things that they shouldn't. Athletes from around the globe delight in the welcome they receive. A few kilometers from Berlin, the Olympic Village, constructed especially for the occasion, awaits in the middle of a landscape which includes a forest, a lake, a hillside, and fields. 140 homes are built in the middle of the elms. According to distance runner Louis Zamperini, the buildings we lived in were more like motels. There were no bathtubs, only showers. I think Hitler had all the bathtubs taken out of Germany because he didn't feel that they were hygienic. Now, some American athletes, when they had eaten their bananas and apples, they would throw the skins and the cores on the ground. The Germans would run right over, pick it up, and put it in the trash. It was probably the cleanest country I've ever seen in my life. I met up with several of my close American friends there, adds the Swiss champion Paul Martin. Young athletes who so finely represent true modern athletes, in my opinion. Laughing, frank, well-built. What a fine mentality these lads trained in sporting schools and chivalrous fights on the other side of the Atlantic possess. Young boys or young girls, all of them very friendly, act as our guardian angels, observes Belgian cycling champion Gérard Lagneau. They're dressed all in white. They escort us everywhere we go. They're at our service, and their role is to make our lives easier. We call them and they come to our aid, but they might be spying on us because they all speak our language very well. In Berlin, on August 1st, 1936, the big day has finally arrived. 100,000 spectators feverishly await the celebration. Louis Gillet is present at the event. An art critic, elected to the French Academy a few months prior, he was sent to Berlin by the weekly newspaper Gringoire. Suddenly, at exactly 4 o'clock, a small group assembles and creates a long silhouette, understated and delicate in the immense decor. An ovation greets the German leader. He advances.
immediately recognizable in a stormtrooper uniform, with a confident gait that evokes a soldier and a leader. When a little girl appears out of nowhere and quickly moves towards him with some flowers, the Fuhrer even takes the time to stop for a few seconds to caress her little blonde head. I saw Mussolini inaugurate his stadium in Rome. He appeared suddenly as if hoisted by a theater trick. It looked like some kind of trap door. Here, the procession takes place on the ground with great poise.
Flags are slowly raised the length of the masts with an almost religious gravity. Unseen, the monumental bell starts to pound from its belfry.
Its great bronze voice sounds out over the airs like a prayer and a solemn sermon, the pulsing of a heart, an invitation, a calling.
Everyone does the salute, but there are some who forget or hesitate for a moment. It's said that the police wait outside for those who refuse to salute the Fuhrer. The day's main event is the Review of Nations. 3,000 to 4,000 men and women walking around the enormous stadium's track and then gathering in lines, team by team, facing the tribune where the Fuhrer is seated. The Greek team is at the head of the cortege, an honor which is their due as the mother of the Games and the oldest member of the Olympic family. Walking behind the blue and white flag is the winner of the first modern marathon in 1896, Spiridon Luis. His face resembles an old farmer's, and he wears a traditional white linen shirt. The other nations arrive in alphabetical order, walking behind their country's flags. The Soviet Union, the most powerful enemy of the moment, is absent. Though announced on the list of participants, Spain, where the anti-Olympics were to be held, is a no-show. Their Republican government was just the victim of a coup d'etat by supporters of General Franco. The world is on parade. Walking in formation, some move quickly, others more slowly, depending on the country. The Swiss add stunts to their passage. Austria enjoys the celebration. The ovation traveling up and down the bleachers is unending. Like fingers on a piano, hurrahs, cries of joy and triumph are called out to brothers of the same race, like a family reunited. Japan and its almost steel-like precision. Turkey, Brazil, Peru. Hungary carries little feathered felt hats in their outstretched arms, which look like chickens. A New Zealand Republican dons his hat to wave with an air that resembles a musketeer. England, phlegmatic, detached, proper, and nonchalant, seemingly not wanting to overdo it. The Italian team exaggerates the stiffness of the fascist salute, which Prince Umberto of Savoy, here to represent Mussolini, returns. The writer Thomas Wolfe, who had published Of Time and the River a few months ago in New York, is visiting Germany, where he has many friends. He, too, is somewhere in the crowd. The stadium was a tournament of colors that caught the throat. The mass splendor of the banners made the gaudy decorations of America's Great Parade, presidential inaugurations, and World's Fair seem like shoddy carnivals in comparison. The most amazing moment, according to Louis Gillet, was when the French team passed by.
Oh, these brave lads. They saluted with their arms extended, a beautiful Olympic salute that resembled a sword. The crowd applauded this gesture, which they take for the Hitlerian salute and interpret as a chivalrous homage to the Third Reich and its leader. The French ambassador to Berlin, André-François Poncet, in a telegraph to the Foreign Affairs Minister. At the Winter Games last February in Garmisch, our athletes also received a very warm welcome. That didn't stop Germany from occupying the Rhineland 1 month later, and for every German to applaud it. Indeed, neither France nor Great Britain had reacted to this act of provocation by Hitler. The German team closes out the procession of nations. They are immaculate from head to foot, like modern-day Teutonic Knights. The athletes who had pledged allegiance to their Führer were followed by a detachment of the Wehrmacht, the same troops who had remilitarized the right bank of the Rhine at France's border. Even though Hitler loved to make speeches, he would now only speak the words that the Olympic protocol allowed him.
Ich verkünde die Spiele von Berlin zur Feier der 11. Olympiade neuer Zeitrechnung als eröffnet.
No symbol of peace could be more beautiful than the release of thousands of doves, even though they come from the dovecotes of the Wehrmacht. 3,075 runners relayed one another for 12 days, covering over 3,000 kilometers between Olympia in Greece and the stadium in Berlin, carrying the Olympic flame. The Hallelujah chorus of Handel's Messiah fills the air as the last runner bursts forth. The athlete is the modern hero. He offers his body to the people, to the state, to Germany. And that about sums up this first day. It has been a fine, mild day with a cloudy sky and no moon. For several days, and from all corners of Germany, thousands of people arrived by train. The German train companies had discount tickets at 1 Pfennig the kilometer. Strength Through Joy, the party's leisure organization, take charge and do all they can to attract the crowds to the capital city. The whole country comes to admire itself and bask in its own greatness and rebirth. "500 guides and translators had been recruited. The Berlin police force had been practicing their English, French, and Spanish. The organization committee had trained the Berliners to be patient and polite, even to the point of giving up their seats on the subway. Anti-Jewish signs have been erased and posters ripped down. The anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer, which was well known for its hatred, was removed from street corners. Prices rise in Germany because all the meat, vegetables, and fruit is destined for Berlin, which needs to appear as the land of plenty. Berlin is now a handsome, hustling place to be at home in, writes Janet Flanner, the New Yorker magazine correspondent. Kurfürstendamm is crowded with restaurants and cafes. At the government's request, fresh house paint and fuchsias at windows brighten every boulevard, especially those leading to the sports stadium. Berlin women are permitted to wear their dresses 5 centimeters shorter than before. Foreign newspapers return to the city. Jazz is heard as well. For the past 2 months, the official goal is to reassure people. The omnipresent police officers are asked to refrain from wearing their uniforms so as not to frighten visitors. Kripo, the Olympic Games Kriminalpolizei headquarters, is disguised as an information center with only women working inside. All was, for the moment, sweetness and light, except for the occasional diatribe in the press against the terrible Bolsheviks, according to American journalist William Shirer. Television retransmission screens are installed in about 15 sites in the city, a veritable technical exploit, even if the competitors look more like silhouettes waving their arms in the fog. Official press photos are furnished to foreign newspapers. Radio transmissions are heard by 300 million listeners around the world. From morning to evening, Berlin has its ears tuned to the stadium. The city resonates with one solitary voice, thanks to the blaring loudspeakers installed in the trees along the Kurfürstendamm. The amplified voice provides Berliners with live coverage of the events. Announcements of the contests, acclamations, proclamations of winners, and national anthems are heard constantly. Leni Riefenstahl shoots Olympia, the Gods of the Stadium, the official Olympics film. She recounts her great surprise when Goebbels decides to totally finance the project, explaining that the film was excellent propaganda for the Reich and therefore fell under the auspices of his ministry. It was financed through a shell company, which has preserved, even to this day, the illusion of its independence. Her superproduction would cost 2 million Reichsmarks, 4 times the budget of a film of that period. The muse of the Nazis persuades us, even today, that the 36 Olympic Games was a sublime competition between the finest athletes, an historical parenthesis which ranks among the most beautiful of all Olympiads. Leni Riefenstahl's film must promote this beauty beyond the events themselves. Olympia celebrates the human body at its prime physical beauty and the hygiene of the race of athletes. Fascinated by the freedom, the suppleness, the grace, and the strength of body, regardless of skin color, Leni Riefenstahl impresses us by the innovative manner in which she films athletic competitions. Olympia is a film about the games as well as an exploit, a cinematographic achievement. She digs ditches in the ground in order to film what is happening at the same level as the track. She films in movement by placing her camera on top of a ladder fixed on wheels. She shoots in slow motion, exalting the choreography of each gesture. Gigantic telephoto lenses enable her to capture details of the launching of the javelin, the shot put, and the discus.
41,80 Meter.
The stadium becomes her soundstage. She has no qualms about recreating the athletes themselves if the footage isn't satisfactory or if she isn't able to shoot a particular event. She redoes, reinvents, reenacts, and sometimes totally manufactures moments and camera shots of events that took place on another day, in another venue, or in an empty stadium. We can see that there is no one in the stands or on the benches at the swimming pool. In her desire to see everything, Leni Riefenstahl is everywhere at the same time. She is the goddess of the stadium gods. Thanks to its staging, dramatization, and the portrayal of this huge mass event with monumental images, Olympia, or the gods of the stadium, confounds our memories of the 36 Olympics with Riefenstahl's film. We are made to forget the event's main character, who barely appears on screen, so Riefenstahl cannot be accused of being in the service of that person, the one to whom the celebration is dedicated. Hitler would have preferred not to attend the games at all, according to Leni Riefenstahl. He explains, "We had no chance of winning any medals. The Americans would win most of the events, and black men would be their stars. I wasn't in the least overjoyed by having to witness this." But after 2 gold medals on the first day, Hitler decides to come back. On August 4th, Goebbels too gets caught up in the games. "An exciting event. We Germans won a gold medal. The Americans 3, although 2 were won by a black. For shame. The white race should be ashamed of itself."
I personally observed 3 faces corresponding to the 3 aspects of his nature,
recounts French Ambassador André-François Poncet, who saw Hitler frequently.
The first was shocked pallor, a limp expression, washed-out complexion, and vague, bulging eyes, lost in thought, looking totally absent and distant, a troubled face like a medium or a sleepwalker. The second was animated, colorful, transported by passion, his nostrils flared, dagger-like eyes, expressing violence, a hunger for domination, hatred of the enemy, a cynical audacity, the face of a madman. The third was an ordinary man, naive, rustic, heavy, vulgar, easily amused, with a boisterous laugh and a common face like thousands of others throughout the world.
The goal was to welcome the entire world. But between us, murmurs Louis Gillet, who had come from Paris especially for the occasion, the world wasn't very anxious to come. The authorities double their efforts, wanting to receive guests in every possible language. In spite of their pleas, there are far fewer guests than they had expected. A Hungarian couple stays for 4 days, instead of the 4 Americans they'd hoped would come to the Olympics for 2 weeks. At noon, people picnic on the grass, or if they can afford it, they take their places under the parasols of the Olympia Terrace, a restaurant that could serve 12,000 guests at the same time.
An overweight lady sits down at our table, recounts Jacques-Benoît Méchain, who represented the France-Germany committee. She was in the chorus that sang the Ode to Joy. What a life, she moans. We rehearse from morning to night. We don't have a moment to ourselves. This afternoon it's Handel, tonight it's Beethoven, tomorrow it'll be Handel again. We work from 7 a.m. to midnight. If at least we could sleep, but that's more than we can hope for. The Housing Commission has put 3 Japanese in my house who categorically refuse to sleep in beds. The first night, the sound of a hammer woke me up with a start. It was the Japanese hammering clamps into the wall to hang their hammocks. Believe me, sir, the Olympics are not all that rosy. Far from it. I watched the crowd, the long, crushing mass of faces in a tireless flow of Germans. A patient, docile people, and mostly ordinary working-class folk dressed in their Sunday best, though it is modest store-bought attire. Surprised to be there, as if suddenly every day was a holiday. It's a slow, sprawling movement of newcomers unaccustomed to feeling the asphalt under their feet, a bit worried as if on an overly shiny parquet floor, intimidated like people taking their very first steps in the world.
After all, this is a country which has been isolated since World War I, living separated from the rest of the world.
And so isn't it amusing to see,
according to the correspondent of the French newspaper Gringoire,
an Englishman or woman, the existence of whom we've had no word except for hearsay or in the newspapers? What is a Parisian woman like? How does she dress?
All of Germany has come for the celebration. Dazzled young people and old folks who have had nothing to be happy about for a long time stand side by side. Those from Prussia, Bavaria, Frankfurt, Munich, or Nuremberg can be spotted by their outdated clothing, their type, and the look on their mugs. But what can one know about their hearts or their guts? It would be nice to know what is inside all their heads and to read the thoughts behind their faces and to know what will become of these children. Here's a woman carried away by her enthusiasm, the joy of being there at this precise moment. Some spectators are impatient, others are worried, but they mustn't show it. There are still others we can't see in these images who cannot enter the stadium because tickets are too expensive. There are the frightened and those who were unable to flee the country and all the undesirables imprisoned elsewhere. There are those who take photo after photo as proof that they are not living a dream, and those who filmed for the entire fortnight with their little cameras, but who saw nothing. And then there are all those souls who fall under the spell, the evil spell, hopeless to defend themselves against it. Goebbels on the last day.
With 33 gold medals, Germany is by far the Olympic leader, the world's #1 nation in sports.
The German Armada takes first place overall with 89 medals, surpassing by far the usual winner, America, as well as being ahead of France, Japan, and Great Britain. The French ambassador writes to the Foreign Affairs Minister,
Germany intimately associates the triumph of its athletes with the Führer. It is to Adolf Hitler that the merit of this glory showered upon a young Germany is attributed. They see him as the artisan of the order, the discipline, the unity, and the national concordance, which enabled Germany to prepare for these Olympic Games in a spirit of calm and peace. But what they are truly grateful to the Führer for is his having rid the German people of its inferiority complex, which has overwhelmed them since 1919, of having convinced them that they were never defeated and that they are invincible.
Après avoir offert au chancelier du Reich et au peuple allemand, aux autorités de la ville de Berlin et aux organisateurs des Jeux, le tribut de notre profonde gratitude, nous proclamons la clôture des concours de la 11e Olympiade et selon la tradition, nous convions la jeunesse de tous les pays à s'assembler dans 4 ans à Tokyo pour y célébrer avec nous les Jeux de la 12e Olympiade.
Ten days after the end of the Berlin Games, Hitler doubles the obligatory military service period to 2 years. Less than 2 years later, Austria is attached to Germany, followed a year after by the annexation of part of Czechoslovakia. Europe appears almost surprised when Hitler attacks Poland in the summer of 1939, triggering the Second World War.